Welcome to the Building and Growing podcast. We're delighted to have Ben Stocken with us today. Welcome, Ben.
Cheers, Lucas. Lovely to be here.
Lovely to have you here. And you've travelled up from Bournemouth this morning, was it?
Yeah. So early train up from Bournemouth, 2 hours. It was sunny. It's always sunny in Bournemouth.
Oh, fantastic.
Small light there, but yeah.
Yeah, excellent. And look, being by the coast is absolutely fantastic. And my apologies for mispronouncing the name of the city. 7 years hasn't been long enough in the UK.
That's all right. That's fine. No worries. You'll have to come down.
Indeed. Let's make it happen. So Ben is the founder of Westpeak, and that as well as L&D will be the key focuses of today's podcast. But why don't we dive into an introduction of yourself and your background, Ben?
Yeah, thank you. So background is I was a very bad rugby player, but a slightly better coach. So I started off my working career with England Rugby. Fantastic. As a performance and development coach, so working on the elite performance side and then working on getting more players into the game as well. Actually worked in inner city London, getting more non-rugby players into rugby. So I did it 5.5 years, and then as well as the coaching bit, I worked in the coach development. So really that was the beginning of learning and development for me. Yeah. It was working with coaches to get them through the pathway, help write those pathways. Then I made the very natural transition into the world of recruitment, which we could talk about maybe in a bit more detail, and worked for the last 12 years in recruitment and executive search as a recruitment consultant. And then I moved into the people development side of recruitment and search. Last full-time position was as head of people and performance for a PE-backed recruitment business.
Fantastic.
And then decided to set up Westpeak on the 6th of January 21, which was the same day that Boris Johnson put the UK into its final 3-month lockdown. Yeah,
it was a long 3 months, and certainly I think an exciting but worrying time to start a business.
Yeah, I think I've shared this openly. I called my CEO at the time and handed my notice in at 8:30 in the morning. Yeah. And kind of was ready to go. Let's go with Westpeak. The world's coming out of lockdown. COVID's almost over. People need L&D. Let's go. I think it was 11 a.m. We had one of those BBC News kind of announcements, which we all got really used to. Yeah. We're going into a 3-month lockdown. And I thought, that's not gone as well as I'd hoped. But like, kind of, I'm in. I've got to crack on. And I then got a call an hour later from my CEO calling me back. He said, Ben, would you like your job back? And at the time I was like, no, I'm fully committed. So I said, no, thank you. But I'd love to sign you as my first client. And so we did. So that was the start.
Excellent. Well, look, that's a very courageous move, and I think something which resonates with a lot of different founders is sometimes when the time's right, you've just got to go, and you grow through the discomfort. Nothing will ever be perfect when it comes to the economic climate or the right conditions to grow the business, but it is what you make of it, and you get used to that discomfort, and you plant your seeds and you see which one grows.
Yeah, completely. And I think at the time it was me, a kitchen table, and Zoom. Yeah. 3 months of finding product market fit. Yes. Delivering to some people. And I had a 6-month runway.
Fantastic.
To kind of get the business profitable, generate revenue and get the business profitable. Yeah. And thankfully we managed to do it in 2 months. Excellent. So that was the start.
Excellent. So Ben, you've spoken about the fact that you started off your career as a performance coach. You moved into recruitment, specifically in the L&D sector, and then you founded Westpeak. Let's dive into the hypothesis that you had when you founded Westpeak. What problems did you think were out there that you wanted to solve for businesses and their leaders?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's one that thankfully we get to answer every day, speaking to new clients. And I think it came from, I was in-house, I'd been in-house as a head of people and performance for 3 years. Yes. And I entered that business I think, as employee 45, and I left probably when we were about 200 and something.
Nice.
Had built a learning and development team that was 5 heads at that point. And I have been pitched to, sold to, had people's business models shared with me as an internal head of people and performance quite a bit. And what I struggled with was people really understanding what we as a business needed to achieve through learning and development.
Sure.
And what we were looking for when it came to partnering with an external provider.
Yes.
So what I saw in the marketplace was it was really really disparate. Mm-hmm. You've got one person, kind of consultants who are very sector specific.
Yes.
So they knew recruitment, or they knew, SaaS or whatever. They knew their vertical really, really well because they generally had a career in that, and then they'd moved into translating that into a fractional kind of consulting role.
Sure.
And then the other kind of businesses we were approached with looked like consultancies. They looked like kind of 30 to 50 people consultancies. And actually, when you dug underneath the hood a little bit, they were a one-person band who'd done really well at then finding a bunch of associates who could deliver fractionally on their behalf.
Indeed.
And had a great profile on their website. And so that kind of got under my skin a little bit, because I felt that if I was to build a learning and development consultancy, and look, coming off the back of COVID, of course, I saw in the recruitment industry and in a variety of other industries, learning and development professionals were kind of the first few in a lot of businesses that were put on furlough or let go as people had budget constraints.
Yes.
And so I knew there was going to be an opportunity to build something, and people were going to need to invest in learning and development, upskilling their people, and engaging with them again when people were coming back into the office or working in a hybrid way. So the hypothesis with Westpeak was, what if we could build a learning and development consultancy where we hired subject matter experts who had relevant leadership experience that were sector agnostic.
Yes.
So what I wanted to do was kind of build the A team of learning and development professionals.
Yes.
Have them all in-house. So everyone at Westpeak works for Westpeak. We can wrap ourselves around a business. I can deliver the things that I'm excellent at, the things that I'm not excellent at, or I don't have a track record in.
Yes.
I can deploy someone in the team. So for example, Jo in our team, she's ex-England netball, 20 years in the police force as a hostage negotiator.
Far out.
And in riot control. Yeah. Do you want me delivering your critical conversation modules or negotiation modules, or someone who's done it in that scenario? You're going to want Jo.
That's exceptional.
The hypothesis was, let's build something where we can add real competitive advantage to the businesses we partner with. Because I think really what people want is when they want to access external L&D support, what are they looking for? Like, what does ROI equal? I think it equals competitive advantage.
Yes.
And so why would they come to someone externally when they could hire that in-house? Well, finding the people that we've been able to find and attract for Westpeak is really hard.
Yes.
They're really expensive to employ unless you're doing what we do every day.
Indeed.
So the hypothesis was, find the best people who provide a sector agnostic experience, which means that if you're in a law firm, or if you're in a hypergrowth tech firm, or a biotech firm or a recruitment business, do you just want to know how sales enablement that is done really well in recruitment, or leadership is done really well in recruitment? Or do you want to be able to periscope outside of your industry and find out how well it's done in every other industry, and then nick the best ideas?
Yeah, indeed.
And I think from what we've seen in the last 2.5 years of growth in the business, the answer is people want competitive advantage. They want diversity of deliverers.
Yes.
And they want to understand how other industries are doing it really well.
Indeed, indeed. I think, you've summarized it very concisely there. And I love the example you gave of, bringing in somebody who's an expert in hostage negotiation to build up that critical conversation experience across an organization to make that a competitive advantage. Because it's, for me, I suppose learning and development, always felt like online sort of courses. You know, I can remember I did one in-person course on the Challenger sale, which was, you know, really, really impactful. But all of the other courses I did were always sort of, you know, delivered online via a video, and that was it. There was never, let's say, this feeling or expectation that we would have a competitive advantage afterwards. So that's a fantastic objective that, you know, you set for your clients.
Yeah, and I think it's something that helps. Like when we go into our sales, like we're a sales organization, the same as every organization.
Yeah.
When we go into our sales process, the first call is a diagnosis call.
Yes.
Like we look to diagnose and then prescribe, and it can be very tempting for anyone who has some knowledge to be like, I can fix the problem you're talking about, when actually, in reality, we have to say no sometimes to clients who you know, this is a typical need that people will come to us with, which is, we need some leadership or management training. Like, great, really pleased that you want to invest in that. Help me by sharing me, like, how have you come to that decision?
Yes.
And it's amazing how often the answer is, we're burning a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know, our managers, people are leaving, and at exit interviews, they're saying, you know, it's because my one-to-ones didn't happen or whatever. Or we've had a bad engagement survey.
Yes.
And I kind of like, I kind of shrivel back a bit and say, okay, talk to me about what you're doing right now in terms of how you lead. What are your processes? Because what I don't want to do is, I don't want us to deliver 2 workshops, 4 workshops, and kind of go, there you go.
Yes.
You know, the rest is over to you. What's really important for me, and what I really care about, and I think everyone in our business cares, that when we leave after a piece of work, the business needs to be in a much better situation.
Yes.
So
indeed.
often our minimum we'll work with business is 12 months.
Yeah.
And then we'll often do a train the trainer on exit. So we'll leave the IP that we've created in partnership with that business, and we'll leave them with a group of people that can carry that on. Now, if they want us to carry on delivering and grow, brilliant. Like, we would love to support them, but there has to be an exit where we leave and they're self-sufficient.
Indeed. And I think that's fantastic, because you can achieve a lot more over a longer period of time, as opposed to, 2 to 4 sessions, and that's it. A lot of the value does come in, month 6, month 7, when you're able to compound the earlier wins.
Yeah, completely. And I think, you touched there on e-learning or online courses, and what's really transformed, I think, in the last 5 years of learning and development, and COVID and the changes, or it's the evolution of how we're all working, that directly relates to the evolution of how we're all learning. The fact we're having this conversation now, you go back 5-10 years, there wouldn't be anywhere near the amount of learning content that people could access through mediums like this. So part of I think what we're doing to enrich that and diversify how people are learning is, we ran a game for the senior partners of a Magic Circle law firm 2 months ago. We ran the game in the garden of a pub.
All right.
Garden of a pub. It was undercover, etc. But we ran them a game that stressed their communication, collaboration, decision-making skills.
Yes.
When we first started talking to them, there was no way I was going to say, you're going to play a game for 2 hours and the outcome is going to be, you're going to understand how to better to communicate and make BAU decisions as a senior leadership team. They would have run a mile. Yeah, indeed. So, but actually the learning immersive experience they went through, we can then land that into the reality and answer the so what question for them. Yes. So what? We played a game. So what? Well, here's the so what. And I think that the way people want to access learning so that it embeds requires us to be really like stakeholder led in terms of what's going to give you competitive advantage, as I said. Yes. But how can we make those learning moments really high value? Indeed. If I turn up and I talk and run 10 slides or facilitate some group work, that's been done and done and done. It's how can we create an emotional connection to you for the learning matter, and then we'll deploy embedding techniques over a long time period.
Fantastic. And Ben, just going back a couple of minutes, you mentioned a couple of pain points that, arise in the form of maybe management engagement with employees isn't taking place in the form of one-to-ones, and there's no process. I'm just wondering whether we could, highlight, let's say, the top 3 pain points that you find in the right type of clients that you take on.
Yeah. Okay. So the right pain point might be hidden behind a poor engagement survey.
Yes.
And so it's our job to then partner with the individual we're speaking to really uncover that. Mm-hmm. So we don't put a sticking plaster on, but we're really, really prescribing the right solution. I think the top 3 reasons why we get invited in to talk to people and partner with them is like fast growth. Mm-hmm. So we work with a bunch of businesses that are VC backed or private equity backed or even, self-funded, but they're going on this fast growth journey.
Yeah.
All they have. And so what we get is either some quite proactive people,
yes,
founders, CEOs, or they've got an NED or a board advisor that says, right, you're about to grow really fast. You've got a bunch of operators who need to become leaders.
Yes.
Like operator leaders, probably in the interim. And so there's a real proactive early stage where we'll be invited in and they'll be like, right, what we want to do is understand how we can develop a practical leadership skill set that gives our leaders, our operational leaders and managers the day-to-day tools to be able to run effective one-to-ones, have critical feedback conversations, turn a group into a team. Like that's good, okay? The other side is like the horse has bolted. We're now 100, 250 people, 500 people.
Yes.
That happened really fast. One business we're working with, they are onboarding 100 people a month.
Wow. Yeah.
All right. They're in a 1,000-person business. Next year, there'll be 2,200 approximately.
Yeah.
So that means that next year, half of their leadership population won't understand values, history, all of that sort of stuff. So we then have to kind of build that into a cohesive leadership education for them. And that's a partnership piece. So sometimes it's good pain point is we know we're about to go on a growth journey. We don't want that to become leadership and management to become a bottleneck.
Yes.
Because we know that affects attraction, performance and retention. The other side is we'll speak to a business and they'll look like a bumbling kind of teenager.
Yeah.
They'll have that growth spurt and the hand-eye coordination has gone a bit from leadership, from SLT maybe, or founder CEO down to the sales floor or the operational floor, or even new geographies.
Yes.
That's when we'll come in and we'll need to do some consultation and analysis on what was it like before you went through hypergrowth in terms of your leadership, your performance behaviors. How can we build that cultural piece back in?
Yes.
So that's the second one. And then the third one is more at scale up enterprise level, where we can augment a really successful L&D or people team who don't have capacity to either kind of renew a leadership program that they may have built 5 years ago.
Yeah.
They've then done a listening exercise within the business and thought, right, wow, we're now leading people in a hybrid environment or a virtual environment. All of our syllabus, all of our approaches were face to face.
Yes.
Because they were built 5 years ago. Can you come in and can you help us kind of upskill our L&D team or deliver or create the right content for us to be able to kind of renew and refresh what we've got?
Fantastic. And I really like how you split that out between, let's say, stage of the business, so those startups who are about to grow or who have grown and they want to maintain that culture or improve their leadership style. And then when you've got larger corporates, for example, that have had successful L&D programs before, but they need to, let's say, adapt them and refresh them for the new age or the post-COVID era.
Yeah, and I think, and some of it is organizational level, and some of it is very team specific. So, some of the sales enablement or sales leadership work we do, that's very focused on the sales side of the business. And often what can then happen is we'll demonstrate, competitive advantage, insert ROI, and the measures they want to achieve over a period of time. And then we'll have a conversation about, well, actually, what does that look like on the operational side of the business,
Mm-hmm.
or the marketing or the finance side of the business?
Yes.
And that's where you can, I feel that's where you can really add a significant amount of value. When you can get different functions within a scale up or an enterprise level organization talking to each other and speaking similar language.
Yes.
There's very few opportunities for a CPO or a CEO to really get that feedback and say, did you know your marketing team are talking a different language to your sales team?
Yeah.
When it comes to how they're approaching performance and outcomes.
Yes.
Now, that is just as a golden nugget is really helpful, because we all know sales and marketing need to go hand in hand and, you know, walk off into the distance. But the reality is, if they're talking a different language, are looking at performance through a different lens,
Yes.
they're going to be kind of, you know, going in different directions.
That's right. Yeah. And having that alignment is so important, because otherwise, one of my clients says a saying often, and it's, you know, if you row really hard and you want to row across the ocean and get to New York, but you know, you row and you row and you row and you end up in Mexico, it's all well and good that you worked really hard, but because you weren't aligned with where you wanted to go, you didn't have that destination super clear, you ended up in the wrong place and all your hard work kind of went to waste. Because you then got to row from Mexico up to New York. And it's kind of the same if there's a divide between marketing and sales, or a misalignment there, because ultimately sales, you know, do a lot of the touch points, but marketing unlocks a whole lot more when it comes to resources and case studies and passive sales, let's say, that complements it, which can really help deals get over the line.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, you know, learning and development, if I go back to when I started in learning and development, arguably 22 years ago, when I was, you know, teaching players how to play better, or helping coaches achieve the next level on their coaching certificates.
Yes.
And then fast forward to now, when I moved from high performance sport environment into a business environment, my experience of learning and development was, you went on this course, you were then able to do X.
Yes.
You know, tick, move on. Or like, you know, we had compliance training around bribery and corruption, etc. And that was some of the most kind of learning experiences you can have. You know, should you do this, A, B, C. We move now to, I think, where we are in terms of marketplace, economy, the way people interact with each other.
Yes.
You know, I wasn't going to mention AI, but you know, the way that technology is accelerating, the way that everyone's roles are accelerating, the way that businesses grow and develop or don't, stagnate and die, is so fast now.
Indeed.
That actually the core role of learning and development is, for me, making sure that your people have the skills they need right now.
Yes.
So let's look at the footpath in front of us, but also look at the peak and look at what's behind the peak. And our role at West Peak is to help businesses skill up for the footpath that's in front of them, prepare their people in terms of succession planning.
Yes.
But also, right, where do we want to go this year, 2 years? What's the summit? What are our competitors doing to try and get there first?
Yeah.
But also, there's a really important piece to say, this is where you're going to be as a business in terms of size, maturation, etc.
Yes.
But then how are we going to help get you fit, or at least help you paint the picture for the summits after that?
Indeed.
And I think that's where real L&D consultancy comes into its own. It's not, can we deliver an excellent communication workshop for you so your people can collaborate better with your clients and internally. It's also, how can we help you plan the skills you're going to need in your business?
Indeed, indeed. I think that's a really good point. And I'm going to jump back to the AI part that you mentioned, purely because it is coming up everywhere. I heard I had a quote the other day from somebody that said that, you know, there was a particular partner at a consulting firm, which I won't mention, but, you know, one of the MBBs who, you know, mentions AI every single time they're in a client meeting. And from an L&D perspective, or from a leadership perspective, I think it's quite interesting, because all of a sudden, not only are you now managing your workforce, let's say you're a leader with 10 people in your team, you know, when you question somebody about their work, it's now not just about what they've produced, but what they've instructed a model to produce.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important that leaders understand that, or at least understand how, their employees might be prompting different AI models and what data sets those are based on. Otherwise, they might be given, some, let's say, really good looking bits of work, but they're not able to challenge the assumptions, and therefore it can kind of veer the business off track.
Yeah, completely. It's so interesting. And I think, if I go back, I think it was a year ago. A year ago, I was on the train, sat at a table, working on my laptop, and there was a guy next to me, and his screen was there, and he had, I guess, ChatGPT.
Yeah.
But it was built in to a university kind of learning platform.
Okay, nice.
And I was like, I've got to have a conversation with this guy.
Yeah,
And so I got chatting. I was like, so what are you doing? And he said he was doing a medical degree, and he was using, this window that was kind of, embedded in his university page to check some code that he was putting into some sort of, I think it was radiography or something like that.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, right, learning in a university setting is ahead of where we are at Westpeak.
Yes.
And it's ahead of where any of our clients, I believe, are. And that was that was a bit of a seminal moment for me, where I thought, okay, now I need to take this seriously. And so you're right in terms of we need to very quickly catch up with how people in our businesses are using technology to help them be more efficient, be more effective. But you're right. Is there a good check and challenge? Is there a good quality assurance, quality control practice in terms of are they using the right assumptions? Are they using the right prompts to get the right information back? It might be faster, but is it correct? Is it accurate in terms of our lens? And when you think about, the increasing volume of Gen Z coming into the workforce, and that being the norm in terms of their education.
Yes.
I've got a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old. There is no way by the time they get to secondary school, any of their work is going to start off as their own.
Yeah, that's right. It's
going to start off with a prompt that's going to give them an idea, and then they're going to have to, I imagine, they're going to have to fill in, create their own thoughts off the back of that. That'll get run through another piece of AI, which will prove or disprove whether they've just cheated or not and plagiarized, etc. So we're thinking about the world of work. We're thinking about how people are using technology. And from our perspective, how do we, I had an email exchange with a really good client of ours. So it was a head of delivery in a software development business. And he emailed me, said, Ben, I know it's a bit cheeky, but I want to increase the effectiveness of our meetings, some of my internal meetings. In your archive, do you have something you can share with me that I can deliver in-house? To which I went back and I said, we run a great workshop. No, I didn't. I went back to him and I said, yeah, of course. However, have you put this through like Bard or ChatGPT? Because this is the prompt I would use if I wanted to start. I want him to be, we work with them. We're in our 3rd year of working with them.
Nice.
They're a partner of ours. So I was like, right, I want you to be as autonomous as you can be when we're not working with you on a specific project. So came back to him, do this, here's some prompts I would use, tell me how you get on. Completely forgot about it. That was a month or so ago. 3 days ago, came back to me, hey Ben, did that, was really interesting. Okay, I've got a good structure now, but the content's crap. And I don't know how to deliver that. So I don't know how to bring it to life. To which I picked up the phone, I was like, I'm sorry, I was being lazy. Here you go. This is how. This is the content I would use. This is how you can put it in, etc. So it's really useful from a learning and development perspective to be able to give you, like, I can say to ChatGPT, Bard, whatever, I can say, create me a 6-day 6-day program on leadership development, and anyone listening to this can. But really, the secret sauce is in the subject matter expertise, the knowledge transfer, how you're going to make that land and develop those emotions in human beings to create those synaptic links.
Indeed.
So AI is it's fantastic. there's some great tools. We're working with a partner at the moment who are helping us train an AI platform, and we're plugging all of our podcast content into it.
Oh, nice.
So that actually people can use it in the flow of work when they've used one of our leadership programs.
Yeah, fantastic.
So, and I think there's a bit of a horizon coming for LMSs, like learning management systems at the moment, because there's no longer going to be a need to like chronologically catalog all of your learning resources, etc. Assign courses to people, give them certifications, because all people are going to want to do is to be able to have an interface and say, right, I'm going into a critical conversation with Lucas. I need to give him some constructive but developmental feedback about X. How can I do this?
Yes.
And they're going to want that 30 minutes before they go into that conversation.
Indeed.
As a reminder. And I think that's where kind of reminder learning is going to go in terms of AI.
Fantastic. Ben, we've covered a lot about L&D today, and I guess in the perspective of the current environment, we've still got high inflation. We might not necessarily be in a recession, but people have been tightening their budgets. How do you justify L&D spend in an economic time like this?
Yeah, really, really good question. And I think the answer, I'll give you a simple answer, and then I'll go into detail and elaborate. The simple answer is some businesses can't. They don't have the cash flow resources right now.
Yes. And
that's where I think, access to resources like this are fantastic for people to be able to do what they can do right now. There are other businesses who will be looking to get a march on their marketplace and have cash flow that they can attribute to investing in their business that are and should be right now. And so the businesses that we're working with that are seeing as investing in their people right now are doing it for a number of reasons. One is employee lifetime value. So employee lifetime value is this concept that an employee, from the minute they accept an offer with you to the minute they leave your business, has an attributed value. And people can go and look at this employee lifetime value model. It's really important to understand what your average employee lifetime value is in your organization. Tenure is an okay measure of it. If someone is in your business, they should give you more value over a long period of time. The reality is, what learning and development can do is at the early stage, from an onboarding perspective, if you have really well skilled up and engaged and knowledgeable leadership and an L&D team in your business, or an L&D partner, they can reduce the time from someone being a cost to being an accretive benefit to the business. So that's where the onboarding bit can help. Then when you get up to the performance curve in terms of embedding, again, like that's about how quickly can they access skills that are relevant to your market, their job, how you do things in your organization. If you're not investing in L&D, then that's going to be slower, which means that person's time to profitability or productivity is going to be reduced. And then if you look at all of the research around employee lifetime value, the biggest thing that can increase the peak at the top of this kind of moon curve and keep it there keeps coming back to the Gallup surveys, etc., around the level and the skill set of the leadership and management in your business. And fantastic. So all of the research that keeps coming back is a well-trained, well-skilled up leader who is responsible for enabling the performance of a team or an individual is a massive multiplier in terms of that employee lifetime value. Because if you're investing in your people, either directly in upskilling them, they're going to be more productive and they're going to be more profitable. They're also going to be more engaged, because like the analogy that I think works is if you're going to a gym, and insert workplace as gym, and you don't have a personal trainer or a personal training program, you're going to do some stuff that might equal you being a bit fitter. But you're also more likely to check out of that gym. Like in the friends kind of, I want to quit the gym. You're likely to go to another gym that gives you half off or a better salary, if we follow the analogy across the business, or bean bags and fruit or whatever. But if you've got a personal training program and you have a personal trainer or a group trainer, and this is where like CrossFit, insert other HIIT workouts do phenomenally well, because they've got that trainer, they've got that community who are learning.
Yes. Yeah.
Put that in a business environment. It's proven people are so less likely to leave an organization where they're invested in.
Indeed.
Overlay with that the cost of replacing people, like we talked about, inflation, energy costs, etc. If you look at the average cost of replacing an employee in the UK and the US right now, it's currently at between 2 to 2.5 times base salary.
Wow, that's insane.
Which is mad. If you think about it, your average salary might be, £30,000, $50,000-$60,000. Multiply that by 2 to 2.5, and I can hear people now watching this saying, Ben, that's ridiculous. But you need to think about employee lifetime curve into that. So the cost of someone checking out, when someone checks out because they don't feel invested in, or their leader isn't leading them very well, they will coast for a while. Okay. Then you've got the cost of exiting them, maybe performance management, or the cost of them leaving straight away, a gap in productivity. Then you've got, hopefully you're using a well-briefed recruiter who's a niche in your vertical to find the right person. That has a cost. That recruitment fee has a cost, and rightly so. Then you've got to upskill them again until they get to kind of, positive productivity through an onboarding phase.
Yes.
And so actually, if you look at that, that can be a 3, 6, 9, 12-month window. And who's bearing the brunt of all of that? The leader of the team, who's just lost the person, or someone else has had to step up and cover their work. So when it comes down to, like, do we have there's a bunch of projects we could do, Ben. We could invest in marketing. We could invest in, a new go-to-market strategy, etc. Yes, you need to do those things.
Yes.
But also, you need the people with the skill set to be able to execute those things.
Indeed. Look, that was a fantastic summary, Ben, and a true sort of a really good way to understand the cost of people leaving, and just how to get a multiple out of the salaries that you're currently paying through leadership.
Yeah, good. I think it's something that we talk about when we're with clients. One of the things we look at, and the ROI on learning and development is a really important thing to understand. Yes. And historically, really hard to measure. Yes. Because there are so many attributable things that could go into someone's performance. Yes. The other business functions can be responsible for, and life can be responsible for, and markets can be responsible for. But I think understanding a business understanding their attrition is really important as a baseline for us as a business. Them understanding what contributes to someone's individual performance. Yes. Easier on a sales side, more difficult arguably on a marketing or on a different operational function side, but it can be done. Yes. And so, I was having a conversation with a life science business this week. Yeah. And it was lovely. We were referred to them by another business that we'd run a leadership program for a year ago. Okay. They were having a conversation, and this person said, "You should speak to Ben because we're still using the leadership tools a year on." And if that's still working, and I was like, that's amazing. Thank you for that. Yes. But they asked a really good question. We had their head of L&D and their CPO on, and they both said to me, "How do you measure ROI on a leadership program?" Yeah. And my question was, how are you measuring ROI on leadership now? Yes. Yeah. And there was a bit of a silence. I was like, I've got some ideas. And so they run some 360 reviews at the moment within the business. Yes. But the uptake on them has not been great. Like the change management in terms of applying those has not been great. So one of the ways we can do it is we can go to the end and reverse engineer. So what are your key stakeholders? What do they want to see as an outcome from a leadership development program? Yes. This. Right. How can we measure that in a quantitative and qualitative 360 review? Yes. Can we? Okay, well, we think we can measure this, this, and this. So we've agreed 5 variables that we believe we can measure that we as West Peak, working with them on a 12-month leadership program, can influence. Yes. So we're going to do a baseline 360 feedback review for each of the leaders on the program, bespoke for them using their variables. Yep. We'll do this at the midpoint, and then we'll do this towards the end. Fantastic. And the whole idea is it's not perfect, but it's ideal for them.
Yes.
And so for me, measuring ROI has got to be a conversation about what are your expectations? How can we translate those into deliverables that we can hang our hat on?
Yes.
And I can say, hand on my heart, we can deliver that or we can't.
Yeah.
And then let's reverse engineer a program that we know can deliver that for you.
Excellent. Thanks so much for that answer, Ben. So we've covered a lot today in terms of learning and development, and how important it is for businesses. And, what we've just heard is really about, how clear the ROI can become when you're able to actually measure each different role, and, understand the sort of journey of an exiting employee when it comes to, the loss of productivity. And then when you hire a new employee, the cost of training them up and the burden that stays with, let's say, their line manager. It'd be great to round off with a couple of key takeaways that you have for founders and operators in the industry.
Yeah, sure, no problem. I think the first thing I'd kind of leave as a kind of key takeaway would be, if you are a founder, an owner, someone responsible for and wanting to and seeing the value in developing your team.
Yes.
The first thing I would do is I'd have a conversation with, a consultancy like Westpeak, simply to understand whether what you think you need is what you actually need. Mm-hmm. I think there are a number of businesses that we've had that conversation with, and we've said to them, actually what you think you need, this is our suggestion. You don't necessarily need it now.
Yeah.
We've had people say, we think we need some coaching. Mm-hmm. Okay. Or we think we need a leadership program, or we think we need some sales enablement. Actually, through that diagnosis conversation, which I'm really enjoy having with people, actually probably 30% of the time, they can do some work themselves first internally. Mm-hmm. Once we've done the diagnosis, which means that when they then do go to invest in L&D, it's going to land, it's going to be well welcomed, and it's going to embed, and it's going to deliver results.
Fantastic.
So I think the first thing is have the conversation. Don't go into like acquiring, an L&D person or using an external provider until you've really understood that, and use someone to help you understand that. But also say to them, this is not us wanting to buy right now. This is us wanting to understand from an expert how you might be able to help us.
Yes.
All right. Because we have those conversations every week, and they're really valuable because we can then pipeline and be able to understand how and when we might be able to help you.
Indeed.
So that's the first bit. The second bit is get really, really clear on what your expectations are as an outcome. Understanding whether you want to lower attrition as your core metric for sales enablement, because you are a sales organization and you've realized that your team are not skilled enough to be able to hit the measures you are measuring them against, and therefore the revenue. That's really important. Like, we worked with a business last year who were after some sales enablement training for their sales force, and I asked them what their sales force specific attrition was. Was 60%.
Wow, far out.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they're one of the fastest growing businesses in Europe.
Yes.
And they said to us 60%. I was like, okay, that's not great.
Yeah.
Why is it 60%? And then when we actually had that conversation and looked at it, it was simply about how they were onboarding and recruiting those salespeople.
Yes.
So we could then give some advice on the early stage of their L&D journey before we even did any sales training. Okay. And then we measured attrition over a 12-month period. We dropped that by 15%.
Fantastic.
Right. So it's still pretty high.
Yeah.
All right. But a 15% reduction over 12 months is a big cost saving. Plus, I think they had a 94% increase in sales.
Nice.
As well.
Nice. Yeah.
So be really clear on what you want to measure, and then make sure either your internal team or the provider you're working with are able to reverse engineer the learning outcomes to create the learning experience that achieves that.
Yes.
Often an off-the-shelf leadership program or sales training program is not going to achieve what you want it to achieve.
Yes.
It will achieve what the business it was first built for wanted to achieve.
Indeed.
And then the third bit and last bit is about being really human when it comes to investing in your people. Look at not just the hard skills that they need to be able to operate, but the human skills that are going to enable them to compete against your competitors.
Yes.
You know, emotional intelligence, the ability to communicate and collaborate virtually in a hybrid scenario and face-to-face are critical skills that have probably lapsed if you haven't taken care of them in the last 3 years.
Yes, indeed. Ben, fantastic takeaways, and you've shared a lot of wisdom with us today in the podcast. So thank you so much, and we really look forward to seeing how West Peak continues to grow.
Thanks, Lucas. It's been a pleasure. Cheers.
You're most welcome. Thank you again.